Welcome to the human side of EdTech today. We'll be talking about AI, ethics, and democratizing education. My name is Nikki, Access and Wellness Counselor here at UAGC, and I'm joined by Kira Heske, Associate Director of Learning Support, and Deb Swanson, Faculty Support. As a reminder, the Culture of Care Summit rests on the following student-centered pillars to communicate, advocate, respect, and empower. And with all of that in mind, let's move to our agenda for today. Today we'll cover what AI is, the ethical considerations surrounding it, and Deb will bring it home with practical classroom strategies. So let's move right into it. And let's take a look at some of the things on the left-hand side. These are ways in which we already use AI, language translation, captioning, text-to-speech. Now let's think about how we are already using it in our daily lives also. It's not all bad. Auto-focusing our phone cameras, fraud alerts, voice-to-text while driving, personal translator, map apps. Now, we do know that AI, bias, ethics, and privacy are hot topics that need to be addressed, and there will always be risks to mitigate with new technologies, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But we would argue that these should not be barriers to adoption. And today we'll discuss those topics while also allowing AI to shine a little bit while we sort through the ways it can benefit educators and learners. AI is not replacing faculty. It is not going to solve every problem. It is not a substitute for human connection, and it is not going away. And looking forward, we're talking about using technology to complement, not replace human interaction, in addition to preparing students for the future. AI will be part of our students' futures, and for those skeptical, let's take a look at the job market of the future. AI usage in higher ed has surged 2.3 times over the past year. Over 1 million new AI-related jobs are expected by 2027, which means that we need to prepare students for the AI era if we want them successfully employed. McKinsey reports that we will see continued growth in health, STEM, management, builders, transportation, mechanics, business, and education. And it gets even more interesting. Let's take a look at what leaders are looking for when they are hiring candidates. In a survey of 31,000 knowledge workers, business leaders, and decision makers in 31 countries, 71% of leaders report they are more likely to hire less experienced candidates with AI skills than more experienced ones without. And 66% of those leaders would not hire someone without AI skills. And so with hiring trends like that, we need to get students up to speed on AI, which means that we need to get up to speed on AI also. And we also need to get a handle on the ethics, the ethical considerations associated with AI, so we can stop shying away from it and begin using it, using teaching and learning it safely and confidently. And with that, I will pass the mic to Kira.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So we have already seen some of the ways that generative AI is transforming the educational and workplace landscapes. But a question that institutions are grappling with is, how can institutions balance the benefits of AI-driven technologies with the need to maintain ethical standards? So the following slides will identify some of the ethical considerations and we will also offer some mitigation strategies. But I really want to acknowledge that it's really important that these strategies are not intended to minimize these concerns. They're intended to shine a light on the issues and keep them at the forefront of our mind so that we can navigate the use of generative AI mindfully. So that's the purpose behind it. Next slide. Perfect. So one of the most significant ethical concerns in AI-driven education is equity and access. While AI has the potential to enhance learning experiences, its benefits are not equally distributed. So if we're not intentional about addressing some of these gaps, AI can widen existing inequalities rather than closing them. So one of the questions we have to ask ourselves is, who has access to AI-powered education? We need to consider who actually has access to the tools and how they are, whether they're being used effectively. There are clear disparities in, for example, devices. Not all students can even afford to have a high-powered laptop or tablet needed for these AI-driven platforms. Internet access. Rural and lower income students oftentimes lack or have unstable internet connections, and that limits their ability to use cloud-based AI tools. Digital literacy. Many students and even faculty lack the technical knowledge to use AI responsibly and effectively. Another access barrier is language. There's language barriers and accessibility challenges. Many AI tools are primarily designed in English and may not fully support multilingual learners or multilingual learners, I should say, or students with disabilities. So we need to ask, are these AI tools equipped with translation features, text-to-speech capabilities, or accessibility accommodations? We also have to consider the hidden cost of AI tools. Even free AI tools often have premium versions with more advanced features or more up-to-date information. So that creates a divide between students that can afford to use them and those that can't. Universities must ask, are students being pushed towards costly AI services that may deepen financial inequities? We also have to consider AI bias in educational tools. If AI models are trained on data that skews towards certain demographics, it can reinforce educational inequalities rather than resolving them. For example, AI-driven tutoring tools may be more effective for students from well-represented backgrounds and leaving others behind at a disadvantage. So there's some mitigation strategies we should certainly be looking at in regards to some of these particular issues. One is financially supporting disadvantaged students. So you can level the playing field at your institution by offering free or reduced cost laptop programs to ensure students have access to the necessary technologies. Universities should also provide institutionally supported AI tools rather than forcing students to rely on private companies with costly subscriptions. Providing students and faculty with AI literacy and resources and training is also really critical because we cannot assume that students automatically know how to use AI effectively. Institutions should integrate AI literacy training into the curriculum to help students use AI critically. And faculty also need professional development opportunities so that they understand how to guide students in effective use. We also should be doing regular AI accessibility assessments. Universities should conduct periodic evaluations to determine whether AI tools are serving students fairly. This includes identifying barriers to access, making adjustments to ensuring compliance with accessibility laws and best practices, and ensuring that AI platforms remain inclusive and to diverse learning needs. And also, universities should be implementing clear guidelines to ensure equitable access to AI for all students. And finally, we should be prioritizing evaluation and continuous improvement of AI tools. So AI in education is evolving very quickly, as we all see. So we need to make sure that we're doing ongoing assessments to ensure that we're measuring impact on student learning and making sure that we're also making sure that there's equity involved. And also, we should be committing to transparency in AI adoption, ensuring that faculty, students, and policymakers are involved in the decision-making process for using these AI tools. All right, next slide, please. I'd like to talk briefly about algorithm bias because that's also a big issue for an ethical concern, because AI systems are only as fair as the data that they're trained on. So algorithm bias is a major concern in that it can lead to unequal opportunities for students, and it impacts areas such as admissions, grading, and learning recommendations to students. So some of the specifics for algorithm bias include a lack of diversity in training data. AI models are trained on existing data sets, which often reflect historical inequalities. For example, in an AI system that trained on data that skews towards certain demographic, it may be less accurate or even or less fair to underrepresented students and populations. There's also an over-reliance on AI for decision-making in some cases. Some universities are exploring AI, for example, for automated grading, student performance predictors, and even admissions decisions. So while AI can lead to flawed or unfair outcomes for students. We also have to look at the impact on marginalized groups. If AI models reflect biased data, they can reinforce disadvantage for first-generation college students, international students, or students with disabilities. For example, predictive analytics may incorrectly assume that students from historically underprivileged backgrounds are less likely to succeed, which potentially can deny them some opportunities. There's also can be a lack of transparency in AI models, which is also called the black box issue. Many AI systems operate in black boxes, meaning their decision-making processes are not easily understood or explainable. So this raises concerns about fairness. If an AI model denies students admission or gives them a lower grade, for example, how can those be challenged or understood how that decision was made if there's no transparency in the model? So we should definitely be looking at some of these mitigation strategies. One of them is making sure that we have ethical data collection and use. Institutions must ensure that AI is trained on diverse, representative, and unbiased data sets to prevent discriminatory patterns. If an AI tool is making decisions that affect student academic progress, there should be clear documentation and avenues for human oversight. And we also must maintain that human oversight. So if an AI system, it should assist rather than replace human judgment in academic decision-making. Faculty and admissions officers and student advisors should be trained to critically review any AI-generated content recommendations before implementing them. Next slide, please. So I want to talk briefly about the sensitive student information and data privacy. It's really a critical component of ethical considerations because there's concerns around privacy, security, and consent in the realm of data. So who has access to data, how it's used, and how it is being stored. So the first question, who owns student data? So one of the biggest unresolved questions in this new AI world we're living in is, does the university, the student, or the AI provider own the data? Who owns that data? If the AI company is collecting student data, what rights do the student have to own their own information? We also have to look at long-term data storage concerns. Even if data is collected for legitimate educational purposes, how long is it kept? What happens to a student what happens to the student data after they graduate? We also have to look at potential misuse of student data. AI tools can be used beyond education, potentially for marketing, surveillance, or even predictive policing of student behavior. So if an AI system detects patterns in student engagement, that data can be used unfairly to predict dropout risks or academic struggles without proper interventions. Student consent and opt-out options. Are students fully aware of how their data is being used and stored? That's very important that students have full awareness of that. And universities should offer clear opt-in and opt-out policies for AI-driven learning systems to ensure that students are able to retain some control over their data. So some of the mitigation strategies that I mentioned here are we should have strong data governance and policies. Institutions should develop clear guidelines on how student data is collected, stored, and shared, and also deleted, and make sure that it's complying with privacy laws such as FERPA in the US and GDPR in Europe. That's really essential. And also, we need to educate students on data security. Universities should offer training and awareness campaigns to make sure that students understand how to protect their own data. Also, just as students are expected to learn about academic integrity, they should also be encouraged to learn about digital privacy literacy. And finally, modern encryption and decentralized storage. AI systems should be implemented in an end-to-end encryption and decentralized storage solutions that's really to minimize the risks of large-scale data breaches. So regular security audits and vulnerability assessments are really important to help detect and protect, protect sensitive student data and information. All right, and then the final slide that I'll be reviewing today is about environmental impact. So I want to talk about the benefits and risks we're talking about the benefits and risks of AI in education, but oftentimes environmental footprint is left out of the conversation. And it's really important that everyone understands that AI requires an enormous amount of computational power, leading to high energy consumption and hardware production demands. The International Energy Agency estimates that by 2026, and electricity consumption from these data centers, cryptocurrency, and artificial intelligence could reach 4% of the annual global energy usage, which is roughly equal to the amount of electricity used by the entire country of Japan. So Some of the ways that it's impacting the environment is water consumption. AI data centers require massive amounts of water to cool their servers, which strains local water supplies. One single data center can consume millions of gallons of water per day just to keep the system running. There's also e-waste from hardware upgrades. As AI advances, these older computing hardware becomes obsolete, and so it creates e-waste, and we have to look at the disposal of those that hardware. We also have to look at the carbon footprint of training large AI models. Training a single large AI model can emit as much CO2 as 5 cars in their lifetime. As institutions adopt AI-powered learning tools, they must consider the long-term impact of energy consumption and emissions, and also a sustainable AI development. We have to be looking at energy-efficient models that consume fewer resources. So I'm kind of getting into some of the mitigation already, but I just want to kind of reiterate. So looking at the energy impact of these AI systems is critical because we need to make sure that we are using low energy AI models whenever possible. We also have to make sure that end users are aware of these AI energy consumption needs and the environmental impact, and so that we're using AI consciously. But for example, only using and generating large AI driven reports when necessary, being mindful of the impact on the environment. We should also be investing in green AI initiatives. Higher education institutions should support AI companies that use renewable energy sources and carbon offset programs to mitigate environmental harm. Sustainable AI research should be implemented to develop models that require less processing power while still delivering quality results. So, in summary, generative AI presents exciting opportunities for higher education, but we need to make sure we're addressing critical ethical considerations such as equity, bias, privacy, and environmental impact. As educators, administrators, and researchers, we have a responsibility to implement AI thoughtfully and inclusively. Through ongoing evaluation, transparency, and ethical decision-making, we can ensure that AI enhances education without reinforcing inequalities or causing unintended harm. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Nikki.
Thank you for the wealth of information, Kira. And all that Kira has shared today should be considered, but we, again, would argue that it should not be a barrier to adoption. It does sound like a lot. Let's look at how other institutions, higher education institutions are using AI in the safest way possible. Some universities are tackling these risks head on by developing their own internal AI tools, like Kira mentioned. They are using programs like Azure that already are being used for other reasons within universities and offering their own version. This allows faculty and staff to use the technology without the concern of some of the open versions that you can Google, for example. These closed versions have more privacy and IP security, in addition to decreasing that digital divide that Kira talked about. And these systems are considered generative. Now let's look at a few examples of adaptive programs. I'm going to use the example of Duolingo to describe adaptive systems. It is a learning app, a learning language app. Some of you may be familiar with it. And it utilizes artificial intelligence to track user performance and adjust difficulty and the sequence of lessons while you're learning a language. And it identifies where the user struggles and provides targeted practice exercises to address those specific needs. And it keeps the learner within their zone of proximal development. In short, a personalized learning path. Now, some universities are using models very similar to this. There's a few called Realize It and Illusion. They are adaptive programs for the classroom, offering each student personalized learning paths in that same way. They push out data to help inform us who needs that additional support in what specific areas and provides options for personalized supplemental materials. Let's talk a little bit about chatbots. UAGC is piloting a chatbot, and they're great for repetitive questions and concerns, and that frees up faculty and staff to spend more personalized time on some of the more complex challenges, questions, or concerns that might come up in a university setting. And last Lastly, let's touch on study tools. And the following are just a few examples. There are many more, but I'm going to first talk about Notebook LM. It's a new program and it allows students to upload, anybody or you today, upload content such as articles, documents, slides, and charts. And it generates a podcast of the information. So you can listen to a dynamic conversation between two people. And this allows people to consume and digest content in a more dynamic format. For some, might be a horrible idea, depending on your learning style. And for others, it could be the solution to your comprehension struggles. And it is available to all of us right now. These programs are coming to life, and students and professionals alike can begin to expand on our idea of what AI really means is. A couple others, ChatGPT 40 is great for math tutoring, homework help. It walks you step by step through it and identifies where you went wrong, if you went wrong. Another program called Khan Academy is the parent to that, and it can be adopted institutionally as an extension of tutoring, and it uses the Socratic method, which working with students at the level that they are at any given time. And now that we know this is being used in universities, I'm going to pass the mic to Deb to talk a little bit more about online classroom strategies when in use.
Thank you, Nikki. Let's take a look first at humanizing the online learning experience. As educators, we can ask ourselves, what does this mean? It means actively creating a sense of connection and personal interaction between the instructor and their students. It also means going beyond simply delivering content to encourage and acknowledge students as individuals and to recognize their efforts in the classroom. Plus, it includes fostering a feeling of community and prioritizing students' well-being, which is especially important when learners may feel isolated in the online environment. Here are some key aspects when it comes to humanizing the online environment. Online classes offer flexibility and convenience. However, they can also lead to feelings of isolation if not designed with a crucial element in mind, a humanized learning experience. Miranda Lopez argues that humanizing online learning is the ability of the instructor to develop meaningful instructor-learning relationships which promote a community of interconnectedness and belonging. To expand on this definition, one could say that humanizing is recognizing the challenges and focusing on academic, emotional, and social aspects. Humanizing aims to create meaningful connections between the instructors and students, and between the students and the course content. So why is this important? It's very crucial that there's an engaging and supportive educational experience that's benefiting both the students and the instructors. When our students feel seen and valued by the instructor, they are more likely to actively participate in class and deeply engage with the material. This increased engagement stems from a connection that students develop when they perceive that their instructor is approachable and invested in their success. Here are some key strategies for humanizing the environment. One is building instructor presence, which helps bridge the gap between students and educators. Instructors can achieve this by sharing their personal stories, their experiences, and their expertise. Also, they can share their insight through video introductions, written reflections. Plus, they can make all of their interactions authentic and personal. Personalizing the learning environment is another effective strategy. By providing opportunities for students to share their experiences and insight through discussions or assignments, instructors can create a more inclusive learning environment. In addition, offering flexible deadlines when needed acknowledges the challenges that students may face by reinforcing their well-being and success are priorities. Additionally, responding to students' questions promptly and thoughtfully demonstrates active listening and care. Clear communication regarding expectations and available support also ensure that students feel guided, respected, and valued throughout their learning journey. Another important strategy is providing regular and substantive feedback. Instructors can go beyond simply grading assignments by offering constructive and actionable feedback that helps their students reflect on their progress and helps them identify areas for improvement. This personalized attention shows students that their learning is valued and that their instructor is invested in their growth and development. Another way, another strategy is utilizing discussion forums effectively, which can promote engagement by prompting thoughtful questions, encouraging students to participate in discussions with their peers so they can share their ideas, they can expand on the week's topics, and gain other perspectives. Active involvement in these discussions helps the students feel connected to the course material and connected to their peers. And this further enhances a sense of community in the classroom. By incorporating these strategies, instructors can create a more human-centered and supportive learning environment that enhances both engagement and academic success. If you'd move to the next slide, please, Nikki. We have a path that's going to lead us through the automation and personalization strategies. First, we've talked about ethical frameworks. Kira has touched upon these, but it's also important to establish guidelines and so forth for evaluating tools. We need to take into consideration ethics, security, care, and environmental impacts. Plus, it's important that our educators are trained to use technology effectively and empathetically and guided by ethical frameworks that prioritize our students' needs and their diverse learning styles. Feedback means that we should look at gathering information from our students to ensure that their use of technology is meeting their needs. We want to know that technology is serving them well and that we are preparing students to use it effectively. Empathy plays a key role in AI-driven online classrooms as it's crucial to foster a supportive and inclusive learning environment. AI-powered systems that incorporate empathetic design can analyze students' emotions, engagement levels, and learning patterns to provide personalized support. AI can help educators recognize when students may be struggling so they can reach out and provide the support and guidance that student needs and seeks. By integrating empathy into AI-driven learning, online education becomes a more human-centered approach, and it fosters motivation, confidence, and creates a deeper connection between the students and the instructors. Institutions should continuously seek to balance the benefits of AI-driven technologies with the need to maintain ethical standards, as Kira mentioned previously. The online platforms that offer interactive tools allow students to experiment with AI models in a simple and hands-on manner. By using these resources, instructors can help make education more engaging, practical, and accessible for students of all levels. By integrating AI applications, online classrooms can become more dynamic, efficient, and self-centered. Let's take a look real quick at what it looks like to do what is right for the students. AI can be used to do the right things for all students by promoting fairness, accessibility, and personalized learning experiences. By leveraging data-driven insights, AI can identify and address learning gaps to ensure that every student receives the support they need. AI-powered tools can adapt lessons to different styles. Additionally, it can break down barriers by providing language translation, speech to text, and other accessibility features for students. Ethical AI systems help prevent biases in education by ensuring that all students, regardless of their background, have equal opportunities to succeed. A final point to remember is that by prioritizing inclusivity, transparency, and ethical design, AI can create a more equitable and empowering learning environment for all. Next slide, please. We found this quote and we found value in it, and we wanted to share it with you. And at this point, it's an unknown author. Empathy and ethics in technology aren't just idealistic goals. They're the foundation of an equitable and enriching online experience. Next slide, please. We want to reiterate some key points regarding the human side of EdTech. Consideration should be given to ethics, adaptive benefits, human-centered approaches, classroom resources, and technology. And the most crucial part is for all of us as educators is to meet the students where they are at. In closing, let's collaborate and strategize on how to fully embrace the 5 pillars of the UAGC culture of care: communicate, advocate, student-centered, respect, and empower in all we do.